I have Jack Sharkey, Senior Technical Engineer at KEF America, that's going to join us. And I just, again, want to thank everybody for coming. And also, we will have during this any of the information that is put out there music-wise. We'll have in our HiFi Chats playlist. I ask you, if you will, to like and subscribe out there, whether you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook. And you end up finding we also, not this Sunday, but next Sunday, we're going to be streaming some Christmas music. We're going to have a live band in the store. And so we'll be looking forward to doing that. And also that'll be promoting the Alchemy Sky Foundation, which I'm a board member for. And what that does basically is we do music therapy for veterans. And it's a very emotional thing for them as well as it is for us as part of the board as well. So we're real excited about doing that and hope you will join us on the 20th. So Jack, how are you?
Doing really well, Alan. Thanks so much for having me. It's just a real pleasure. It's a great way to spend a Friday afternoon with you all. And yeah, you know, everything is good. It's 70 degrees here in Nashville today. So,
wow.
Yeah.
It's actually feels like about 70 degrees outside. I think it's about 65 or something. But I mean, middle of December, that's pretty amazing weather. So we'll take it. And I think we're going to have it for all week long. So
yeah, supposedly, yeah.
Happy about that. I even walked my dog to work this morning, so that was pretty awesome. For those that don't know, I have a dog by the name of HiFi, and I always tease him if I get him a pal, his name's going to be Wi-Fi. So listen, we're going to talk a little bit about Jack, his personal life, some things that he's gone through, and experiences that have had an effect on him, mentors he's had, and then we'll get into some product and that kind of thing. Again, I just want to thank everybody for being here. So Jack, you ready to go?
I am ready to go.
From what I know of you, you are. So tell us about, we're going to get to know you. Tell us about your family, where you grew up.
Well, I'm originally from New Jersey, and I know that's going to be hard for people to guess because of the accent, because it's very difficult to hear my New Jersey accent, because I'm presently, I've been in Nashville, Tennessee for the last 5 years. But I grew up right on the ocean, about an hour south of Manhattan. So I've been married for 31 years, coming up in June. And
congratulations!
Thank you. Yeah, that's been the easy part of the whole ride. Everything else has been a lot of work, but that's been fun. And I have 3 kids and two granddaughters and a grandson on the way. So to kind of reap that benefit, because I'll tell you, that level of raise is really a lot of fun now. Because I just go and I rile them all up and I cause all kinds of problems and then I just go home. So it's real fun. Yeah. So and I've been with KEF since 2008. I've been in the industry, either in the audio industry or the computer industry in one form or another, since I'm out of college in my whole career. But so I've been with KEF since 08, and it's been really a lot of fun. It's a great company to work for. Great products, something that we really stand behind, but just the culture of the company and stuff is something that really it makes going to work a lot of fun.
Well, the thing I've learned through all these and what I've known in my own life is that culture is what creates great things, and not just products come out of nowhere. And culture is what creates it.
It's all about the culture. Yeah, it is. And one of the things is to work for a company. I know this is going to sound like so much marketing or whatnot, but to work for a company where you really stand by the product, for all of its good, and for the times when things need to be fixed or changed or upgraded or whatever, but to stand behind the product and the ethos of the product and the performance of it is really very satisfying, especially in a business like the audio business, right? Yep. Where you get to do your passion, and so to be passionate about the overall business that you're in and then the company you work for it's a real treat. And
the success of that passion is just a whole nother level of enjoyment. So
absolutely. 100%.
I know y'all are kind of in that right now with the introduction of the LS50 Metas and the wireless and that kind of thing. That's been amazingly well received by everyone.
Yeah. No, we're psyched to use the phrase. We're psyched about it. Yeah.
We're going to get into that a little bit later, so we'll save that for then. Cool. Tell us a little bit about Hobbies.
So I'm a geek. I like techie stuff. I have had finally to admit that I like sound better than I'm into this for the sound and not necessarily the music. But I've been a musician. I owned a recording studio, and that was always sort of my pleasure. That was my sort of avocation or my hobby. So it's this new thing that I'm doing. What I love is sort of music archaeology and jazz history and things. And now I can, with all the streaming services and with all the music that's just available at the sort of the click of a mouse. It's really been fun for me to start discovering music for music's sake rather than just the sound of it. So yeah, I don't do a lot of things other than the music. I take a picture once in a while and I go for a ride once in a while, and that's about it. Yeah.
Well, I get it. I tell people I go to live shows, I eat, and I play music and work here. So
yeah, that's
about
it.
And live shows have been non-existent, but we're excited about actually having a band here at the store. We're going to have a 4-piece band and hopefully a vocalist as well, and do some Christmas music and offer that to our customers and customer base. So
yeah, I think that's the coolest thing. I love that. That's a great idea. So I'll be definitely tuning in for that for sure.
Well, we look forward to that. So life experiences, things that have had an impact on who you are.
When you sent the questions over, or when we were talking about the questions, when let me know where maybe to talk about, and I was like, wow, it's a question you don't answer about yourself a lot, and there's so many of them, right? But
Correct.
You know what? I've been really, really blessed in my career to be mentored when I was a younger person in the industry by some really, really intelligent, smart people who saw me as the sort of smart aleck kid that I was, or, whatever, the undisciplined kid that I was, and kind of, put me in the proper space. And there's probably 3 or 4 of those guys that they were engineers and all that I worked for that were truly life changing. Obviously, as a kid and you have experiences with your family and things, but when you get outside of that, I really wanted to kind of think about what were the things, and I can name them. I still think about them. I'm not in touch with them anymore, which I think actually is kind of a good thing, because they exist in this place in my memory.
Yep.
As these really important people who really kind of helped me become who I am, for better or worse. They kind of got me on the right path. So that would be the thing, would be the biggest. And then the first time I actually listened to music on a pair of headphones was what set my course. And in my room, I had this, as a kid, I had a little G record player, a little plastic, thing with a ceramic car. My mom and dad bought me for Christmas one year. And sort of by the spring of that year, I was taking speakers out of televisions. I was going, wherever I could find little speakers. I had them strung up in my room. I didn't impedance, and who cared? It didn't matter. I wanted to just hook up speakers. This poor little stereo I just brought to its knees. But that's what kind of brought me around to it. So even then, obviously the music was super important. I grew up in a very musical family. I had musicians professional musicians in the family, and I had a stab at it myself, but it was the sound, and it was always the sound is what kind of intrigued me more than anything else.
Yep. We're going to get to your first experience of wow. I think we all have it. I know I had mine, and it's just something that is always deep in me, and I can't ever really forget that. And I've always told myself as I progress through this business that I never forget where I came from. And it's amazing when I think about that first stereo I had and what it was and that kind of thing, and how much I enjoyed that stereo at that time and how much I enjoy my stereo today. And it's really no different, but had I had that stereo today, I don't know that I'd enjoy it that much.
I don't think you can ever enjoy it as much as that first sort of exposure to it. And I think that's so critical nowadays. I think music is it's so prevalent, or it's just so everywhere for us, that I don't know that I think sometimes we just, as a people, we kind of forget just the simple joy of listening to a song and just, and loving what that song means and all. And I hope that experience never goes away for anybody. Yeah. It's been that important in my life.
Well, it's like I tell folks that, once it's in you, it's nearly impossible for it to go away. It's just one of those things that doesn't happen. So
right.
That's what I tell folks. Make sure when you do your upgrades, make them big and just don't do them as often.
That's right. It's a great way to look at it. Yeah.
Because it's not going away.
No, not at all.
I tell people
yeah.
if you got it, it's in you and it's not leaving. So, so how did you get into this business?
Well, like I said, it was really truly, Alan, it was that stereo along. And by high school, I was taking electronics courses, and I've always been a geek about that kind of stuff, to begin with. And then the fact that my father was a professional musician. He was a drummer that played with, so nothing notable, but he played with some big bands and did jazz. My brother had a go at it and stuff, and I was the youngest in the family, so it was just sort of this constant trickle down of music. But believe it or not, my mom, who was completely sort of, she didn't play an instrument or anything. She had a radio going on top of the refrigerator in her house 24/7. You wake up in the morning and the radio was on, and it was her sense of pop music and her sense of what was a good song and whatnot. I always kidded her as she got older, she should have been an A&R person because she just had that ear. So she taught me about that sort of pop music sensibility and all. And then, I went to school for audio engineering, and I was, an analog engineer. And at the time, there was great money as a young man to be made, or there was more money to be made in the computer industry than there was in the audio industry. So I kind of jumped ship, and I spent a good number of years working in research and design for a computer manufacturer. In fact, like the first NextRad systems, I installed those across the country and abroad, for weather radar and stuff. So I was on the jump of that. It was really, it was a great experience. And those were those mentors came from. I was working with some really brilliant people who sort of helped channel, all this energy. But the music and the audio technology was always in the background. So I always dabbled in it. It was always an avocation. And then as the hardware industry sort of changed, if you will, the computer hardware industry changed, then I found myself getting back into doing installs, doing sort of like large theater and church installs and things like that. And that is what inevitably led me back to KEF. So I may have strayed off the analog course a little bit, but I was never that far from it. And I had a great teacher in high school who taught me, who taught me great theory above and beyond what I probably should have been learning. And so that was a big help too.
I always thought it'd be wonderful to do sound in some of the churches. Some of them have some of the best sound of, places you could have out there. And gosh, with some of the sizes of some of the churches these days, it's amazing.
It's amazing. Some of the systems, and of course, this was back when I was up in New Jersey, like the mega churches in my area here and up in that area there, they really understood the need for a really good sound system, for a live sound system. So, working on systems with 7 or 8 racks in the back with, just really having to tune on. A couple of systems I recall offhand, took 6 months to put together and to wire and to get everything going. So that was I never really did a lot of. I did some sort of home audio installs and everything, but doing the commercial installs, it's amazing what you can see and hear from them. And my funny thing is I use 2 records to test my systems. I use Donald Fagen's Nightfly and, of course, Dark Side of the Moon. So here I would be in this giant church by myself, sort of on a Wednesday afternoon, getting ready to fire the system up and playing Dark Side of the Moon. And I always say, well, I'm not sure that's the greatest thing in the world, but it's what my ears needed to hear. Yeah.
Yep. Incredible, especially if you know it that well. I was born in Morristown, New Jersey. I only lived there till I was 3. So,
okay.
But I have some kind of memories from up there, but not much.
Yeah. No, I'm a piney. That's what they call us, pineys. I'm down from Ocean County in New Jersey. I grew up in a town called Brick. So there you go.
Wow. I'm from Brick.
I'm from Brick. Yeah.
All right. Your first time going wow, as we all have.
Never forget it. Remember it like yesterday. And again, the little stereo that I had, but I borrowed my friend's KEF headphones, and I listened to Midnight Flyer by the Eagles. On the Border was, the album came out when I was in high school, and I loved the album. It was just tremendous. And those headphones on, and I heard things that those little GE stereo were just not capable of doing, and that changed it. So then I actually listened to my first FM broadcast with the headphones on, and it was the the King Flower Power Hour for those of you who
Oh, wow.
remember that. Yeah, and just hear, I think it was an Allman Brothers show, and just sort of hearing things that I had never heard before. As a musician in musical family, I knew it existed. I knew what bass sounded like. I knew it was there, but I just never thought that you could have it out of a record player. And it was that singular moment in sort of July of my freshman year of high school that actually set the course. So it's the Eagles' Midnight Flyer for me, man, all the way. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. I think about those COS Pro 4As. I think they sold about 40 billion units of those things.
Yeah.
Is that what those headphones were?
Yeah, I don't remember the exact model number, but I would take the bet that that's what they were. And
Oh,
I mean,
God.
just the fact that my friend John to bring them home to listen to, that's a leap of faith on his part, and I'm really careful not to damage him. But that was the night right there.
So tell us, if you will, about a particular piece of music that moves you and why, and how did you find it?
Well, the song in particular there's an album by the pianist Lang Lang called New York Rhapsody. All right. And if you haven't heard this, I'm not a big recommender of music, but this is the one that I would recommend. And Jason Isbell sings a song with his full orchestra. It's a beautiful piece of music called New York Morning. And in fact, I just listened to it to kind of get it in my head before we went on the show here. And it is the most stunning vocal performance I've ever heard. And then with this full orchestra behind it, I'm not a big Goosebumps kind of guy, but this is the one that gives me the choke right in here every time I listen to it. And then right now, so as terms of older music, I think maybe I've listened to it so much that I haven't really, it's maybe kind of worn off. But there's a new song on Chris Stapleton's new album called Maggie's Song about his dog. And I'm having a hard time getting through that one. I love, so when you hit a piece of music like that and it gives you that emotion, and then when you get it on a full-blown system and you hear everything that's going on. But right now, my recommendation is New York Morning by Jason Isbell and Lang Lang. Absolutely.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for those couple of suggestions. I will make sure I listen to them this afternoon, both of them.
that New York Rhapsody album, actually, too. I mean, if anybody's familiar with Dirty Boulevard by Lou Reed,
yes,
they do a thing with that where they mash it up with a song from West Side Story, and I think Jeffrey Wright is the guy. He used to do the Oncola commercials. He's got that deep, really great theater voice, and he actually speaks the part of Dirty Boulevard as this orchestra is playing behind it. It is phenomenal. I mean, in the correct world, in the right world, this is the album of the year for everybody, and it's a couple of years old now. But I listen to it a couple of times a month still. It's that good. Yeah.
That's absolutely awesome. Well, listen, I want to take a moment, if I can, and just thank everybody for being here. This, again, is HiFi Chats number 28. This is with Jack Sharkey. Sorry, Jack. Senior Technical Engineer at KEF America. We're going to get into some product line here in just a minute, but I wanted to say this is kind of KEF stream week in the U.S. David Solomon yesterday with Cobuzz had on Johan Korg and Ben Hagens from your company as well. So, David, that was a great discussion. I think you might be out there, but anyway, I appreciate your shout out as well yesterday, buddy. Also, we'll ask you, if you will, to like and subscribe to the channel. And the music that Jack has mentioned here will be added to the HiFi Chats playlist that we have it on Cobuzz. And so anyway, we really love you to participate in that. It's a very eclectic group of music done by all the guys that have been in the business for a long, long time. Also on the 20th, we're going to have a 4-piece band and hopefully a vocalist as well. I believe that's going to happen. And we're going to stream some Christmas music, and really, really excited about putting that together. And HiFi Buys very much loves the Atlanta music scene. And so we kind of want to share that with you guys. And at the same time, it's going to benefit Alchemy Sky. So we'll be asking for a little help for the Alchemy Sky Foundation during it. And we do music therapy for veterans. So it's they help create songs, so they get down deep in their feelings and put together songs that help them actually get through things. And because it's all the veterans doing it, they all get to share a lot, and it's kind of like therapy without therapy. It's pretty awesome. So we're excited about doing that. So let's move along. let's see here. Who is or are your mentors in this business and life? I know you've got many because you've mentioned that. And so if you will, share with us.
Yeah, so we go back to what we were speaking about a little bit earlier with when I was in the computer industry and just I will tell you that it's such a wide range of a fella that I got a chance to meet. My job with KEF has become sort of this great later in life mentor to me, which, believe it or not, that's like as an important thing as I didn't realize as it was to have a younger in life mentor. And it's a fellow who he worked with the Beatles, he worked at Abbey Road Studios, and he's done a lot of things. His name is on a lot of albums. He's a tremendous engineer, but he's just a deep thinker. He's just a really good human being. His name is Ken Scott. I don't like to just throw the name around, but that's the human being. That's him, and he's been a real benefit to me sort of in the last 10 years or so. But I would say that the people I'll also tell you that Dr. Jack Oakley Brown has been a phenomenal influence on me, and he is our head of acoustics for KEF, and I've got a couple of multi-decade head start on him. I was on the planet long before he was, but he's brilliant, and he thinks differently about things that we're confronted with, about problems and about stuff. And I think that's what's always drawn me, is people who are not afraid to sort of go around a circle, to think about things a little bit differently, innovators in that sense. So I've been really, really lucky as a young man to work with older guys who were brilliant. And then as an older guy to work with either people my same age or younger than me who are also brilliant. But it's the odd thinkers. I love odd thinkers, man. They're the best people in the world, really, seriously.
I agree with that. I think people that think outside the box are always the ones that help you strive to go farther and help you find better places. And I've been fortunate enough to have folks here that are older than I and younger than I, and I'm able to learn from all of them. And hopefully I can somehow share a little wisdom with them as well.
But, I think that's a great thing, to never stop learning or never come to that point where I can't learn something from somebody at some point, and that's a great joy to be able to do that, and to do that at this stage of my career for a company that's doing what we're doing in terms of product launches and things like that, and to still constantly be learning, the technology and things that I thought I knew. Oh yeah, sure, I have a handle on that. And then when you really drill down into it and you understand it on a different level, I've always been fascinated by physics. I've always been fascinated by sound energy and just things that I can't see and that sort of stuff. So that's been a great deal of fun. And when we get talking about metamaterial and things like that, it all sorts to start to come together, and it's a gas. I love it.
It is amazing. In my audio life, I've run into a couple of know-it-alls and realized that there's no possible way anybody can be in that place, just because there's an endless sea of things to learn.
Yeah, and it's always, I always try and walk a wide path around guys. Sometimes I'm like that myself, guys who know just enough, or folks who know just enough to be dangerous, and then you have to be you always have to kind of be careful about that. But I've been lucky in my industry, and I'm not talking about even just KEF people, just people I meet in the industry, and folks that I work with on even on an occasional basis. There are some really wonderful people who are involved, and that's why it's such a joy for me to be on your show. It's just great to work with a good bunch of guys, and people that, and I don't mean to be sexist. It just happened to be we're all guys here, but it's just great to be able to work with a good bunch of people who have the same feelings and share the same things. It's a great joy when you can do that.
Yep, it's a great club, no doubt about it.
Yeah, totally.
And, people always ask me, well, define who your customer is. And I always tell them, I said, it's anybody that loves music. So who does that leave out?
Yeah, Yeah, I've not met one yet, and I would love to. I'd love to meet somebody that doesn't like music to go, okay, explain this, explain why it's not important to you. It's fascinating to me. Yeah.
I think it's, it's the same way with, there's obviously people that have more interest and some that have less, just like cars or anything along that line. So,
Sure.
I certainly understand that. By the way, I want to share with y'all some fun that we're having. If you look, let's see. Yep, right up there on my screen, you'll see with a pair of LS50s. And that's my employee, Mike Doty, who dressed up in an elf outfit. So he's our elf on the shelf for the year. And so you'll be seeing him pop up in a lot of our Christmas stuff. And anyway, y'all give him a good time about it. It's really quite fun. So that's our joy for the season. Thank you, Mike.
I love that. I love that.
All right. So tell us about your path to KEF, sir.
Well, it was by happenstance. I was going great guns doing installs with, like commercial installs. And I had kind of a fun path because I owned a publishing company for a while and did some writing and all. And, so I had two things going. And this was sort of in the early 2000s. So I was, hustling. I was doing two side hustles in order to keep food on the table, right? So I had the publishing company going and the installs, and then I think it was 2008 or whatever when everything just hit a brick wall. I mean, you would be busy, sort of literally for me. It was in August I was too busy, I couldn't keep up with it. In September I had no work. Like it went just binary. So I answered an ad for a service guy for KEF to work, run their repair depot, and I had to work. It's just that's what you have to do, and like I was like, wow, wait a minute, this. They told me it was, and then slugging away there, and I've found my home there. So my path to KEF was quite by accident. Not to say that I didn't put all the work in, to lead up to it, so that when the opportunity arose, I wasn't able to grab. But I had at that point, I was not even thinking about it like that. And I was aware of KEF. I knew the C55 product really well at that point. But yeah, purely by happenstance. And now they're stuck with me. So it's the way it works.
Well, it's always nice to find your home, the place where you fit.
Yeah, even if you didn't mean to do it at first. Yeah, it's great. Yes. Yeah.
I totally agree. Totally agree. So tell us about KEF and what does it mean to be a tier 1 company? That's pretty rare in today's world.
So KEF has been around. Oh yeah, especially in the audio industry, in the speaker industry, it is very, very rare. So we've been around since 1961. We were founded by a BBC engineer who had worked with Wharfdale and done a lot of things like so in the 50s, in the very sort of burgeoning age of hi-fi and all. And it's an apocryphal story that he tells of having gone to lunch with a friend of his who was a plastic salesman, basically selling plastic cups. And I believe it was even a yogurt cup that they were talking about, and they went to lunch and he's looking at this and, he's saying, well, this is my new job. I'm selling these things. And he sort of backed up and looked at it and was like, well, wait a minute. Because at that time, everything was paper cones. So if it was humid out or if it was hot out or it was cold out, the sound would be, the timbre of the speaker would literally change. So he, in a lot of sense, Raymond Cook is sort of the father of modern speaker design, because he took these materials that were brand new. I mean, 1958 or 59 in England, right? Plastic cups were not all over the place. And he turned that into KEF. So we've been doing that sort of innovation. We're an engineering company. We were founded by engineers, and we're run by engineers, and it's audio engineering, and it's that magic and that beauty that sort of drives us. Now, to talk about the tier 1 manufacturing, it's something we're really, really proud of. So we'll talk about from the bottom up, and we'll say like a tier 3 manufacturer is really a marketing company. They're going to take other people's products, put their stamp on it, and send it out the door. So that would be the bottom tier. And then tier 2, they're going to grab, maybe a speaker box and maybe a crossover, maybe some wires and different things, and kind of put it all together. They don't spend a lot of money on R&D. They don't have a lot of automation in their factories, and then they're going to send their product out the door. Then you get into a tier 1 manufacturer. And then just as a quick aside, in the 1960s, we started making drivers fees, and we call that chapter KEF for others, and we would build drivers for many other companies, and that added income not only helped build the company, but it also allowed us to purchase the first computer or digital testing devices that we used for early design. So we're back as early. The reason why I'm starting is trying to get the date right. So about 1970, we started actually using computers for our designs. We were that far ahead of the curve on that, and the reference models and all that came out in the early 1970s were a direct result from that. So back to tier one, what we basically do is we take raw materials in the back door from the loading dock in receiving, and then we turn that into a product and then send it out. So we're completely responsible and completely in charge of our research. I mentioned Dr. Jack Oakley Brown. We have world-class physicists, not just audio engineers, not just mechanical engineers, but physicists. I'm an engineer. I have a great deal of affinity and pride towards people in the engineering industry, but we're dealing with physicists who are helping design our product. They're on our salary. We don't contract them in. They're part of the KEF team. I could get one of them, except for the fact that it's England right now, they're probably in the pub. I could get one of them on the phone right now to discuss the problem if I had to. Right. So then we have that whole research and design aspect. Then we have all the in-house manufacturing. So in England, at our factory, we're going to build your muons and your reference and your blades, as well as do all of our research and design there. And then in China and on the mainland, we have our own factory that our engineers designed for us. So we didn't just buy a building with a bunch of workshop tables on it and stuff and put people in there and build speakers. Or it's clean room. So clean room standard is really serious. Our machines that do all the automation. When you're building a Uni-Q, the tolerances for a Uni-Q are incredibly tight. So we don't want anybody else doing that for us.
And becoming tighter and tighter all the time.
Scary tight, right? I mean, as we talk about LS50 Meta and what we're actually putting into an LS50 box, machines are the only thing that are going to be able to accomplish that. But you need well-designed, well-maintained machines that are built for a specific purpose. So again, this is all about being tier one, because we can go, you and I could hop on a plane right now and go to our factory in either England or in China and see our products being KEF in place all the way. So what that gives the consumer is this great sense of satisfaction. We're building the best product we can build, and sometimes things go wrong, right? So when things go wrong, we're actually able to go back to the factory via serial number and know the exact day it was built, why something might possibly have gone wrong, or get in touch with the engineer who's in charge of it, the direct engineer responsible for that product. That's unheard of. You can't do that in any other company that except for when it's doing tier one manufacturing. Yep. So we're super proud of that.
You should be. I mean, the fact that you're totally in charge of, what products you bring in and what goes out the other side of the door, total design, engineering, and manufacture.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome.
And what the consumer gets, or our partners, like HiFi buys, what you're getting from that is this level of confidence that we know what we've done, we know what we're building, and it's all to be. And I circle back. I don't like to circle back on the fact that if there's a problem, but you yourself, if you have an issue, you're not just going to go to some phone rep somewhere who doesn't really, know what's going on, to an engineer, and then who is then going to another engineer, and so on and so forth to get the problem fixed. And as a consumer myself, that's the end all for me. I mean, that's all I want to deal with.
Well, and a little more of that's being involved, especially with the new wireless speakers and that kind of thing as well. Obviously, engineering sitting another level and understanding of what's involved there. People think you just make an app and you put it out and, everything works. And it's extraordinarily more difficult than that.
Yeah. And to that end, the wireless itself, particularly local area networks and homes and stuff, it's still a bit of the wild, wild west. And the products are actually outpacing what the modems in our houses are capable of doing a lot of times. Now, that doesn't help the consumer. To just go, well, that's your cable company's problem, or that's your home, Wi-Fi problem, or whatever. That's not how that works. But we're the whole entire industry is sort of outpacing the capabilities of the industry. I heard this great thing, and I'm just going to throw a quick little story at you. It'll only take a second, about the 737 MAX. And there was a guy being interviewed, and he said, there is no one human being who can explain to you this airplane. There's 800 human beings that can explain to you in detail every system in the airplane, but not one person can explain the airplane. Now, we're not there yet, right?
Right.
That's the way the technology is going, and it's really interesting times, particularly on the RF side of things. Yeah, the wireless side of things, very interesting side.
Well, it's definitely an exponential curve.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
We're seeing that all the way across the board and just about anything in life these days. So
think back to 5 years ago, even, people now, they just stream high resolution files on a regular basis. If we were to have this conversation in 2014 or 2015, we're like, oh, well, maybe someday, or, oh, no, that's voodoo, we're not getting involved in that. But, in 5 years, look how the industry has changed.
Yeah, it's amazing when you think about it that, the wireless networks that are in people's houses and that kind of thing are actually, almost double timing every 2 years according to Moore's law. And I mean, it's, what's going to happen. So, the idea that $30 box that you buy to take care of your network is over.
No, 100% over. This is not going to cut it anymore. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I love the fact that you're a tier 1 company, and I think it's a big thing about you guys, and it shows that you have, again, control over everything you're doing, and the products that come from the company definitely speak that. I want to talk a little bit about the history of KEF. Y'all have a very rich and unique past. You've done a lot of really different products. I can't tell you how many pairs of 104.2s and 105.2s I've seen in my life, and what a unique design with that 104.2 with the pole in the center of the woofers and that kind of thing. That was just so. Tell us a little about the history of KEF. I know you've talked a little bit about that. I think you started in business in '61, from what I remember you saying.
'61, yeah. And we're still kind of on this pretty much the same location. Obviously, we've grown from there, but in the '60s, if you were to take what we're talking today about streaming technology, and we were rewind 55 or 60 years, that was a discussion people were having about HiFi, at that point. And so we were, on that vanguard of how do we make something. The whole point of what we tried to do back then was, how do we make something that's consistent, so that if you bought a speaker that was built on a rainy day, it didn't sound worse than a speaker that was built on a sunny day because of humidity and all these little things that nobody had really sort of considered. And then by the end of the '60s, we were getting involved with working with universities and all, and they were the only people that had the high-level computer devices at the time that do testing and all. So we were doing full-on automated testing. Certainly by the early '70s, we owned our own equipment. We got involved with the BBC and helped design the LS-35A, which was their the BBC. Now, just to talk, the BBC at that time in the '60s and '70s was the creme sound of broadcast sound. It was better. Not any of the American networks. Nobody. BBC had it. They were doing it right, particularly in terms of live broadcasts. And the LS-35A was put together a small studio monitor. So if it was a portable studio or whatever, they would have something small that could fit in there. So the cool thing, there's maybe 65,000 pairs of LS-35A were sold. And it's still considered today to be the whetstone, still considered today to be what we're going to throw the speakers by. Every single one of those speakers that was sold, no matter who built it, had our drivers in it and had our crossovers in it. So that's why when you fast forward to 2011 with the LS-50, that's why we celebrated our 50th with the LS-50, because the LS-35A was such an important part. But then we come to reference. Great story about reference, and I always need to tell this. And by the way, 104.2s, really just an amazing speaker. Just to this day, they stand up with anything. Today they're that good. But where we came about the name of reference was not just because it was this cool thing. We had all of this data that we had been compiling from all these computers that we were using to test the curves of all our speakers. And one engineer would say, hey, I have one that sounds like this. Do you have one? Well, I've got one that's close to that. Then they actually had one of our guys write a program to find these matching curves. So they would find a left speaker and a right speaker, or they were just speakers, but then we would match them together if they were sort of, a half a dB close to each other. And that's why when you bought a reference pair, they were actually referenced to the original speaker, loudspeaker that was built, and they were referenced to each other to properly to sound equal, so that your right and your left had the exact same response all the way through. So when we talk about reference, we always capitalize it because it's like a really big deal to us. So that was one of the innovations. And we talk about force canceling was an innovation for us. You mentioned 104.2, and all, and just so many different things. So we've always been involved in that. As home theater became a thing in the 90s, we had some products that came out that were like the first products that really kind of pushed the envelope of quality for that. So, it's what it is. It's this cool little shop, if you will, of really qualified, smart people who happen to love music. And, it's a great sort of mix together is what's actually made KEF who it is. Listen, we're a big corporation. Of course we are. But it's a cool little shop of smart people is how I always like to refer to it. And that's how I feel when I go to work every day, when I talk to these folks. It's like a boutique brand that's able to punch with the world class brands.
Well, and speaking on that, y'all's marketing is really cool. I received this box of chocolates today. I don't know if y'all can read this, but it's Grateful Dead chocolate, a long, strange chocolate trip.
Nice.
And then it says a collection of chocolate truffles infused with the vibrational frequency of the Grateful Dead music.
That's fantastic.
So, anyway, great job, guys.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I'll make sure that our folks are responsible about that such a thing. And we care about sound, and we care about doing this right. Like we're in it to win it, but we're in it because we enjoy the journey too. And that's been part of what KEF's been about all the way through, and that's never changed.
I don't know if y'all can see, but there's our.
He's on top of the yellow text now, sitting. Yeah.
Top of LS50s back there. So anyway, that's our employee Michael Doty. So anyway, y'all give him a hard time if you can about that. That's fun stuff. So the thing that I've learned about like tweeters over time, that you can have two tweeters of the same, basically same model number, and they don't have the same dispersion. And right. You kind of have to look at each of those things. And now, as I think tolerances are getting up, that's probably starting to disappear a little bit, I would imagine, if the manufacturing game is on.
Yeah, because we've taken, again, when you're building a speaker in a clean room, and most think of medical C's, right? But there's a reason it's not just keeping dust down, it's controlling humidity. And believe it or not, a product that's built, particularly a mechanical speaker, that's built on a humid day is going to have different tolerances than a product built on a dry day. That's just life. So when we're controlling that environment, then we're going to have a consistent product all the way through. So you're not going to have a tweeter in your left speaker that's got, a 180 degree dispersion, and a tweeter in your right speaker that's going to have a 40 degree. I mean, that's just stupid numbers I'm using, but just to kind of give the example. So yeah, that is kind of changing. But then again, now we're going to circle back to the tier 1 bit. The tolerances are so tight that we've got to have some kind of control over the processes to make sure that we're taking advantage of being able to have these tight tolerances in our products, so that, if I come down to your house and listen to your LS50s, they sound the same as when you come to my house and listen to mine, that we're going to have that same experience throughout the product line. So it is, it's a big deal to manufacture speakers today. It used to be you just made a cone and put a magnet on it and a piece of paper, and off you went. But of course, now look at the difference in how they respond and how they react to music than they did, 50 years ago or even 40 years ago.
Yep. It is amazing. People always talk about, I need to buy an old turntable because they haven't learned anything about them lately. And it's kind of just amazing to me. All of technology throughout all the industries is absolutely coming forward. Manufacturing techniques, materials, all of those things, the brains behind them, the collaboration of brains from around the world allow us to actually get farther and that kind of thing as well. And it's amazing to watch how fast things are improving.
Yeah, and just because something's an old technology doesn't mean it can't be improved. The turntable, that's an old technology, but geez, there's a lot of things that can be done with a turntable that that maybe you don't notice up front but can sure change the musical, the listening experience overall that you might not even notice. So yeah, I'm all for whatever technology we can put into things. Let's have at it. Yeah, 100%.
We all certainly have the capability. Again, being a tier 1 company, that's one of the things I love about it. So let's talk about new technology. I know that Meta material is one of the technologies. I know a little bit about where it came from, but I don't want to steal your story here. So please tell us a little bit about where Meta comes from.
So let's first talk about why we even care about Meta, like in the first place. Right?
Great idea.
Right. So backwave, and that's going to be the key word for the next part of this conversation. So if I have a speaker, obviously we know sound comes out the front of the speaker, but the same exact amount of energy comes out the back of the speaker. Now the problem with the stuff in the back of the speaker is it bounces around inside the box. It actually has to go somewhere, and where does it go? It goes to the speaker, interferes with the new wave. So the back wave is bounce and then interfere with the music being made. And what that does is it sort of dulls the experience. It changes the detail of it. It changes the spatial information, where I am in relation to the music, musicians I'm listening to, and so on and so forth. It moves it away from what we're trying to replicate, which is a live experience. So backwave, we're going to keep that in mind as we talk about it. Now. The first patent to handle something in terms of backwave was issued in 1940. So this is not something that we just kind of went, wow, there's this energy we have to take care of. We've known about it all along. And there's been a lot of different methods. We even in 1967 with our Carlton speaker, what we did is we attached I guess it's like a polypropylene tube. It was 31 and a half inches long. It was attached to the back of our tweeter neck, and it was wrapped up inside the cabinet of the speaker. And the theory behind that and the practice behind that is the back wave would then, where the back wave is most concerning is in the higher frequencies from, sort of also and above, but we'll get into a little bit more detail on that in a minute. So it's that mid-range and upper frequency about the back wave. And then that sound would go down the tube into Carlton, and then, theoretically, infinitely, it would never come back and it would just disappear. Great theory, great try, but physics will slap you in the head every time, and there would be new resonances and new chuffing that would get, that the sound that we all hate was introduced at that time. So this is the culmination, and I can truly say a culmination because things don't get much better than 99+% of efficacy, right? So this is the culmination of that journey. So what Meta is, and we partner with a company that is the leading company in the world of sound management. They do it in airplanes and HVAC systems, really big commercial systems where, you might have something rumbling at 100 dB or 90 dB, which just is not healthy and you can't have that. So they're using material to kind of abate that sound. What metamaterial is any material that if you were to just use it in its natural state or its normal state, it would not have these properties. So the metamaterial disc that we use is made out of plastic. Now, nobody's going to think that plastic is a sound absorber, right? It's the exact opposite of a sound absorber. But yet we've been able to use just this nice, really cool plastic disc, and a lot of engineering and thought into it to get rid of 99% of the back wave. So all of that sound that you would be messing inside of our speaker boxes with the front speaker is literally gone. And this is not marketing, this is not my marketing spiel. This is not some fancy.
Jack, my question on that is, I'm a believer that, all energy starts from the sun and, doesn't ever dissipate. It just changes. So where does it go?
Well, you didn't warn me that I was going to have to get my Physics 101 textbook out.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to learn something here from you.
It goes away. So what happens actually is, so in the Meta, and that's really, Alan, that's a really, really great question. So let me give a stab at the answer this way. So we know that resonances, and this is how we use ports in speakers to sort of embellish the bass response of the speaker, right? Well, that we can also use that in the opposite way, that if we can excite something to get it to vibrate oppositely of something else, those two waves cancel each other out. Let's think of something out of phase, when your bass is out of phase. That happens all the way through the sound spectrum, okay? So with Meta, we have these channels that are built specifically to resonate at a specific band of frequencies. So let's just pull a number out, just without getting in deep into it. Let's just say we have one that's built to work on an octave either side of 1,000 hertz. We'll just call it 1,000 hertz,
Okay.
right? So when my back wave comes out, when I'm listening to my song, to my music, and there's a 1,000 hertz signal, well, that excites the channel. And then that excitement is a -1, right? Because it's going to be out of phase. So the +1, right? The +1 is the actual wave, and the -1 is this excited wave, this wave that is made by the material because it resonates to it's like a dish or a picture hanging on the wall, right? Pardon me?
I said it's made to resonate, to help cancel the sound.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly right. So that +1 plus the -1 equal. So that wave the energy just dissipates. It literally goes away because we're not talking about. And you're great that you bring up the sun and energy like that. We're talking about an artificial energy, right? In a sense, we're talking about an energy that we produced through an amplifier, right? So we can destroy that energy as well. And plus the fact that sound will eventually diminish into zero. It will, a wave will eventually diminish into nothing. We're just helping speed that process up. So what we have is we have 30 channels in this disc that's 0.43 inches wide. Let's see, there we go, right? And it's about the size of a coaster, or a hockey puck, right? In terms of its diameter. And we've figured out a way to get that on the back of the Uni-Q. If you notice the LS50 Meta, the footprint of the box is the exact same. That's engineering, taking this little disc and put it on the back of that of the Uni-Q assembly. So now what happens, we have these 30 channels that at different frequencies up and down the band. And this starts at 620 hertz. So literally from 620 hertz audio spectrum, we are eliminating 99% of all that backwave energy. And I will tell you that, what I'm telling you sounds really cool, and it's science fiction and it's fun, and but when you hear them, the very first, I've been listening to the same album for most of my career doing audio, and that's Donald Fagen's The Night Fly. It's maybe not the greatest recorded album, but it works for me. I know what I'm supposed to hear when I'm supposed to hear it. And I put the first thing on there. I know what a Fender Rhodes piano sounds like. I'm going to go a little geek on everybody here now, but I'll bring it back quick. And I know what a Fender Rhodes sounds like, the mechanics of the hammer and the whole bit. And I put my LS50 wireless 2s on, and that's the first song I went to, and I was shocked because I could actually hear it in its own space where it belonged, and I'd never heard it in 40 years, ever. Haven't heard that level of detail. I knew it was there. I didn't hear the detail. And the reason why that happened was because that back wave that was interfering with the new music was gone. And I was able to just hear what was new and what was precious sort of at that moment. So it's real science fiction-y, but it's not fiction at all. It's just real, true, hard science. And there's been other stabs at it. There's other ways that people have gone about controlling that back wave and everything. But in terms of the elegance of a half an inch wide by sort of hockey puck diameter disc that you stick on the back of a Uni-Q driver that already has its leg up because of the fact that it is a Uni-Q and the way that works, it's paradigm shifting. And I'm not just saying that because I work for KEF. I'm saying that as an audio guy, that it is paradigm shifting.
Well, I can completely agree with you in that. When I first heard them and turned them on, I was just impressed with the level of detail, but yet also relaxed in its presentation. And that doesn't mean not dynamic or anything along that line. There just wasn't that additional noise, I think.
Yeah. It's not strident. It's not trying to work real hard. You're literally not listening. Not only you're not listening to the cabinet because of all the bracing and things that we do in the cabinet, but you're not listening to the speaker driver itself. There's no colorization happening there. So you're hearing what that artist intended you to hear, but it's not artificial in any way. And that, you speak to a great thing, right? Because you speak about ear fatigue and listening fatigue. The reason why we get tired of listening, and the reason why I truly believe the reason why we don't listen to music nowadays the way that we used to is because everything is so tightly compressed that it's noisy, and it tires our ears out a lot faster than, say, something that was recorded on vinyl, 40 years ago did. Well, this is sort of now we're getting on the other end of that process where we're realizing that noise is a detriment to everything that we do. And if you can listen to something exactly how it was meant to listen to, I listened to a string quartet that I have in a 192/24 file of it's Haydn, and it's just a beautiful piece of music. And I could actually hear, not sense, but actually hear the body of the violins, because there was all that detail of all that resonance inside of the that's stunning. That they might as well have been sitting in front of me playing, listening to them like that, and that's a great experience.
Well, we've sold many pairs of them. I have one of the wireless units right back here. That's the new LS50 wireless, and again, another level of. I mean, I've been so impressed by the LS50. As a matter of fact, the LS50 is really the reason that we picked up KEF. And that was many years ago, and we have expanded quite a bit since then. And to see the speaker come back around with such improvements, I mean, really, congratulations to you guys on doing such a great job. We're going to get into the speaker kind of specifically, but the meta technology is just something that everybody has asked about. I've even had folks ask me, "Can I get a piece of it to put in my speaker?" and so on and so forth. So. But I wonder if I can just take a minute to do a little housekeeping. You can see we have our elf on the shelf, always pointing the wrong direction, but our elf on the shelf now running alongside a pair of standard LS50s. That's our employee, Michael Doty. Hey, listen, and if y'all have questions, please, Jack is one of those guys that's fully capable of answering the questions. So if y'all have questions that you'd like to get answered, we'd like to get them answered for you, and we'll try and cover those at the end, or we might even do them as we get through, because I do get the feed right here. So I'll be very happy to do that. Also want to ask you if y'all will please like and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate you doing it very much. It helps us with our Google thing, and also get you in touch with what we're doing as well as we go through. Also, we have a newsletter at hifibuys.com. If you don't mind going to hifibuys.com and signing up for the newsletter. If my guy in the background, Robert, if you could put up the link for it, that'd be great. But this is Jack Sharkey, Senior Technical Engineer at KEF. Guy's been around the business and done just about everything in it, and it's amazing to be able to have your time today. So thank you again so much for being here.
Oh man, don't thank me. I'm having a blast. This is a great way to spend a day, Alan. I really appreciate it.
Well, good. I appreciate you sharing. It's how we all learn. I mean, it's why I'm in the business. I love learning and I love teaching. And without me being able to talk to you guys, I can't get there. So
that's great. Thank you. So we really appreciate that. And again, working with a company, working with you guys and all, it's just, we have some of the best partners in the entire industry, and we're really proud of that. And we want to make sure that you guys know how important you are to what we do, across the board, so that never gets forgotten.
Awesome. All right. So I want to find out a little bit about how products have evolved as the world has evolved. And I think probably for you guys, the Uni-Q is one of those drivers that has gone quite a few ways since its original inception. And tell us how that has happened, and what's been done to help make it a better driver. I was going to state something, but I have a question later in that about using concentric drivers and what makes them so special. So we'll wait for that. But please tell us about Uni-Q and how it's come forward.
So I'll skip the part about the concentric driver bit, and we'll talk about that afterwards. But basically, I've been working on Uni-88, and the theory behind it is very simple. If I'm listening to any note, let's just take a low A on a piano, and I bang that note hard. It's at 440 hertz or lower than that, which would be in the domain of the mid-range speaker, for example. But what makes it sound like a piano are all the other harmonics that come up and then bridge over into the domain of the high frequency driver. Right. Same with my voice. My voice is somewhat low, right? But I have sibilances and things in my voice that make my voice characteristic of me, as everyone does. And I will be in the domain of the mid-range driver at times, even the woofer at times, and the tweeter at times. So that's natural sound, right? But now to replicate that, we don't have just one speaker. And I don't care what you say about your Bluetooth personal device. One speaker doesn't do the job. You can recognize, like a phone, you could recognize me on the voice. Right. So what we do is we have to have a tweeter to high range, high frequency. It handles that job specifically without getting into the reason why. I think most people kind of get it, and so on and so forth. But the problem is if I have my mid-range here and I have my tweeter over here, inherently that sound's coming from two different places. So it arrives at my ears at two different times. Same sound, two different times. Which if I'm not in that exact center or sweet spot of the cone that's coming out where both of those speakers align properly, I'm not going to get that true experience. I'm going to get a muddled sound stage. I'm not really going to be able to tell exactly where things are coming from in space and so on and so forth. And then, you know, my buddy sitting next to me over here listening to the song, if I'm in the sweet spot, because obviously it's my house, I get the sweet spot first, he's not going to get the same experience as me because the sound is coming to him at a different place. So I'm going to jump ahead and give an example as I talk about this. I built a nice little theater in my basement. My dream theater, right? It's a little room, you know, it's very humble, but I love it. And I've just spent a year tuning it and it's wonderful. I have two tiers of 3 chairs. And the center chair, I talk about sweet, but that's the TV is right there, the whole bit. And we have this dog named Molly, who is the most spoiled Boykin Spaniel, I think, ever in the history of all dogs. And when we go downstairs, my wife and I, to watch a movie, the dog gets the center seat now because she's Molly and she has to be in the center seat, right? Because she has to get petted by the both of us. So here I am in my theater. Alan, I worked on this theater. I dreamed of this theater my whole life, and I'm sitting over in the left chair. Now that's my new. But because of unique technology, watch how I tie this all together. The fact that the timing is so right, I can sit way over here on the left, and the speaker that's on listening to music or watching a movie, I get it spatially correct. I get where it's supposed to be, and I get the detail. And the same with my wife, who sits all the way over on the right side. She's getting the left speaker how it's supposed to be. That's the Uni-Q because of the timing. So because the cone of dispersion for myself, my wife, and the dog is all the same. So we're all getting that same experience. So that's how I like to explain Uni-Q. But we started in 1988. We're in the 12th generation of Uni-Q. So we'll up the generation when we need to because of technological advances and things like that, right? So you see, this isn't a product that we just kind of put out, hey, this is cool, it works. It worked, but we've made it better over the course of now, I guess we're going to be coming up on 31 years of this product. And the LS50 Meta is a 12th generation Uni-Q with Meta technology attached to it. We didn't upgrade the Uni-Q generation, even though there was a great deal of changes to the Uni-Q to sort of to work with the meta material, if you will, to kind of enhance that experience. But it's still 12th generation. But imagine a speaker company that has made a speaker that has 12 generations over the course of 30 years to kind of perfect that. So yeah, we talk a lot about Uni-Q, but for us, it's our core technology and it's where everything starts. So that's kind of oh, and a real quick thing, the whole point, now we're going to bridge into concentric speakers.
Yes.
The whole idea, a lot of people go, oh, you just slapped a tweeter into the center of a mid-range. I mean, how hard can that be? And we'll talk about that in a second. But the reason why we were able to start Uni-Q technology to begin with is because of airbags. Because the magnets that were used in airbags that were developed by GM in 1982 are incredibly powerful. So look up neodymium magnets on YouTube and see the fun these guys have with these magnets. Well, that's an incredibly powerful magnet, which allows us to put a tweeter in the center concentrically with the driver, but still have that same kind of power to be able to produce. So that's just a nice little aside I'd like to tell. So how do you want to talk about concentric as opposed to coax, opposed to coplanar?
So one of the things that I know that I've, and I've talked a lot about in theaters, that one of the reasons I like concentric drivers, especially in the center and really left and right, because you can get the same voicing from the product and not have to have this center channel that's like, 12, 14 inches tall, because you have to have that tweeter mid-range setup. Otherwise, you won't get the same voicing out of it, period. Right. So that's one of the things that I've seen. I also know that in ceiling speakers that we have worked an awful lot on with products that have angled tweeters and angled baffles and moving, you can move the mid-range and the tweeter around and that kind of thing so that it can actually be aimed at the listener. And what we find every single time is the speaker changes its sound so dramatically that having it aimed at you is not working. And so what we've learned is take a speaker that has extraordinarily wide dispersion and you just let it sit in the ceiling. Yeah. And it actually does a much better job. Yeah. So we have in our living room here at the store, we've had 3 different sets of speakers in that ceiling, and the KEFs stay.
Oh, that's awesome. And and they kind of earned that right because of their performance, right?
They did. Absolutely.
You have 3 different ways to do it. You have the coaxial, which we're all familiar with. Certainly, the Jensen 6x9 coax speaker in our cars were, right? That was our first introduction. But where we took, the engineers took the tweeter and put it in the center, the physical geometric center of the mid range. Then you have the coplanar, where they share the same axis here. So you have the X and the Y axis. But now what we have done is we've made a coincident driver, where at the actual acoustical center of the mid-range is where we've put the tweeter. In a sense, then the tweeter uses the mid-range driver as a waveguide. So the mid-range, in a sense, becomes part of the tweeter mechanism to get that. That's where you get that dispersion from. And then if you take something like the R series or even the front baffle of the LS50 with the curve of, the shape of the curve, that's done on purpose, not just because it's awesome looking, which it is, but that's, right. But that has a scientific reason. And that curved baffle acts like a waveguide for the mid-range, which acts like a waveguide for the tweeter. And also you have a total system design here. You have everything all put together for a purpose. And what the purpose is you can sit back and hear, no matter where you are in the room, what was supposed to be. So when you take it to the next level, you can just take a Uni-Q speaker and put it up in the ceiling, flat in the ceiling, and it's going to disperse, the dispersion is 170 degrees. It's going to basically envelope the room. And if you had if you had your left, your center, and your right over top of your television pointing down, which is completely counterintuitive to anything that you've ever thought about, you're going to get, not only are you going to get that full action coming at you with great soundstage development and great clarity, but it's also going to couple itself to the television or to the screen. So the action on screen, if you've got a guy if you're watching John Wick or something, right, those punches or those throws are going to be they're going to be coupled. The sound and the video will be coupled together, and that's because of the dispersion. So yeah, getting a speaker on an angle in a ceiling is you might as well just put headphones on, because it's going to be a much better experience in terms of what you're going to be able to hear. Sorry.
I've heard some that do okay, but we really struggle with that. We've really struggled with that here at the store, and I'll say the KEFs just nailed it. So we've got a theater with 5 of those the 200 THX. I think they're about $800 a piece. An absolutely amazing speaker. So we've been really pleased with those. So the Uni-Q and that type of driver has basically been a staple of y'all's business, and it's obviously something y'all work on really hard. And now the meta material is obviously going to be a big part as we go forward, I would imagine. Yes. So one of the questions that I had from Richard Stanfield, and Richard, thank you for joining us, was will the meta technology trickle up to the blades?
Well, we would assume it would, wouldn't we? Right? And that's all you're going to get out of me.
I figured that would be true, Richard. So there you go.
It's an awesome technology, and we're really proud of it. And it is a paradigm shifting technology. And I'm going to leave it at that for right now. Yeah.
All right. Oh gosh, that's all. All right.
I'm sorry, Alan.
No, I can't expect to get more than that from you. It is just fine. I understand what y'all are up against. So let's see. So before we get into the product range, do you have anything to add that kind of really sets KEF apart from a pretty crowded speaker market?
Well, no, I don't, beyond the tier 1 and the engineering, but I'm going to sum it up this way, and I always like to talk about it. It's passion, right? I'm going to just kind of sum up what differentiates us in the marketplace is passion, because it's the passion that we have that leads us to these innovations that we do, and it leads us to the products that we build and all. So, at the core of this giant, company with robots that build speakers and all that stuff, this of passion for what we do. And we're only in this business because we love music. And I love when people come to our company from outside of the industry, right? For, whatever reason, either they're in accounting or whatever, they're not audio people. And then they start to understand the passion of what it is that we do. That gives me great joy. So that's how I'm going to sum that up. And I know that's not your typical corporate answer, but that's where I'm at with it.
Well, I think that, one of the things that I always try and do that when I have somebody like that walks in my store is to give them their wow moment.
Yeah, I mean, because that's what it's all about. The reason we listen to music in the first place is, for a wow moment. The reason we watch, Star Wars or whatever you're a fan of, is for the wow moment. So that's what our whole job is delivering that. What a cool job that is, right?
So listen, we have covered pretty much of the KEF LS50 Meta, but what else will we have to say about it? I did have somebody send me a question yesterday or this morning, I think, on my email about asking you what are the differences between the original LS50 and the LS50 Meta?
Well, there are several. Obviously, the Meta technology, and so what we did in October, we released the LS50 Meta, which is the passive version with the Meta technology, and then we released the LS50 Wireless 2, which is also the Meta version, right? So make no mistake, even though it doesn't say Meta on the outside, it is Meta material in that driver. But the LS50 Wireless 2 it's not an upgrade. It's a brand new entire product over the LS50 Wireless. It's a new platform. It's more powerful. It's 780 watts, divided into a dual quad biamp setup where the tweeters, and it's the same with the LS50 Wireless, right? So each driver, each of the 4 drivers in the system has their own amplifier. They have their own DAC. So that's the guts of it. But then the wireless platform that we use is extremely robust. We have Spotify Spotify Connect, Tidal Connect, Qobuz, Deezer, internet radio, and all just off the bat. AirPlay 2, Google Chromecast, I'm sorry, is there as well. Plus, you can still hook up your turntable and your optical as HDMI eARC. So for televisions, we're a little bit ahead of the curve, and eARC is becoming a thing here, as you well know. So we're already compatible with that. It changes your 2-channel listening experience quite a bit. So what we've done from LS50 Wireless was a really great product. And then we said, all right, what did this product do really, really well? And where can this product be made even better than it was? And we just started from scratch. And then with the addition of the Meta material. So it's more of what you were getting, but not just more because we wanted to throw more in there, more because there's really good technical reasons for that. And I did happen to notice one question here, I noticed that your guy answered it too about active and powered systems. It's just a matter of the vernacular, right? An active system is anything that you plug in, and a passive system is plug into the AC outlet in your house. And a passive system is anything that you would use your speaker wires to out of your amplifier. So, as what we're doing is a powered system or an active music system. It's a wireless system or however you want to call it, but it's all kind of the same thing. And it's just more of it, and it's more robust.
Yeah, I'd always thought kind of the active and powered was one is powered, but with no DSP, whereas when you're actively manipulating the drivers, would be more active.
Yeah, and I suppose that's a really great way to put it, and that sort of comes out of the pro audio end of things of what you would have in a studio, where so that's actually a great way to put it, and I think that's why active is a far more correct way to say it. Yeah, when you put it in those terms, absolutely.
Andrew, thank you. You helped me define it while I was looking at your questions as well.
Great. Yeah, it was a really great question. Yeah.
So, Andrew, thank you very much for the question. Hey, if y'all have any questions out there, please feel free to ask them. We have Jack Sharkey, who is Senior Technical Engineer at KEF America, here to answer any of your questions. Very, very capable man and enjoyable conversation. I appreciate this so much. I want to let y'all know that if you will, please to like and subscribe to the channel. And again, please ask the questions that you'd like. Also, I want to let y'all know that HiFi Buys is going to be streaming on Sunday night, the 20th, a live band. We're going to have some Christmas music playing from here at the store. And so we're excited. We're very much part of enjoy the music scene in Atlanta. I've been to every venue here. I really, really, really miss being able to go see everybody. So we figured we'd bring them here. And so,
what a brilliant idea.
Yes, well, we're excited about it. It was a gentleman by the name of Tom Gallagher that works here at the store that came up with kind of doing it, and I absolutely support it. So very excited about it. So LS50 Wireless and the LSX, both of these are truly outstanding products. Obviously, the new LS50 Wireless, which I have sitting right behind me over here, just a whole nother level of product than the original wireless. And so it has advanced an awful lot in technology and formats, and I guess there's a lot more processing power that's in it.
Yeah, processing power and just plain old audio power. It's just, there's a lot of beast in that machine all the way through. Yeah.
Awesome. So I want us to you guys, we have the LS50s and the LS50 Wireless here. So if y'all want any discussions, we've spent so much time on that. I want to get to some of the rest of it and try not to take us too far into the evening. So if we will. And by the way, on the comments out there, it was looks like all active speakers are powered, but not all powered speakers are active. And I think that's a great way to put it. So
yeah.
So we have defined things in the audio world today, Jack.
Talk about paradigm shifting. We've done it right here on the show, and
Right. So let's talk about y'all's. I hate to use the word value so much, but y'all's least expensive range of speakers, really, as far as in a box type variety, is Q series. Right. I know there's some amazing specials right now on these things, which I can't even believe. So if y'all get an opportunity, take a look and you'll see what specials they are. But
it's a killer speaker. Yeah,
it is. So tell us a little about the Q series and kind of how y'all are able to get it right at such a reasonable price.
Well, again, we are able, because we control everything, we're able to use the components that will fit for that price range without sort of skimping or giving up on what our principle is or what our core technologies are. Some of the fun things about Q, just so you know, like, all right, so we're going to call it our entry level speaker.
Okay.
I don't know why, we don't really have another name for it, but think about this for a second. There are different size drivers in each of these. So it's not like we have a whole bunch of cheap speakers on a shelf and we're like, let's make an entry level speaker and we just pop them into some nice cabinets. That's not how we do it. We actually designed specific drivers to fit within the footprint or within the cubic volume of each box for the best response. That's the beauty of being an engineering company who controls everything ourselves. So, when you think about an entry level speaker, you're typically thinking about something that is a product that is just, it's there to sort of introduce people to the brand or whatever it is. But we take it far more seriously than that. Our entry level has to perform at a KEF level in order for it to even, when you think about the fact that we have different driver sizes throughout the Q line, that in it would make you really comfortable that when you're bringing Q home, that you're bringing a KEF product home, you're going to get that same experience, just obviously on a different scale. But with these specials that are out there today, it just explodes that whole experience beyond belief to me, because take like the 350 and as a bookshelf speaker, I'm a bookshelf guy. I always was like a bookshelf fan. It's an amazing speaker for what it does, for the size of it, and for what you're paying for it. It's in, and that is going to then ramp. You're going to start at that level, and you're going to ramp up all the way through our product line from there.
Yep. and we'll get into the R series here. But I just, again, our elf on a shelf guy.
His timing is perfect. Yeah.
It's so good. Anyway, I always tell my guys here, I said, listen, we're meant to be fun and easy to work with. And, if you can't have fun at work, then, we should try and figure out a different way to do things. Bother. So anyway, we're having a ball. So R series, we've delivered, I think, 2 pairs of R5s this week, both in that walnut finish, which I think are just amazing. And the proportions of that speaker are just, I don't know. It's something that just feels comfortable. I always find kind of, we have these speakers sometimes that are kind of way deep or too tall or short and too narrow or whatever. And it just the proportions of it just seem to be just really, really right. And at $3,000 a pair, they're just such a great speaker. So tell us a little bit about the R series and what we get when we go from Q series to R series.
So one of the cool things about the R series, you talk about sort of the aesthetics of it or the footprint of it. That's also, it's a happy result of some engineering work, because we all know if we put a speaker in a baffle, the closer that speaker is to the edge of the baffle, the less diffraction there is, right? The less noise distortion that we're going to get. So what we did is, what's the smallest we can make that speaker, that R series speaker baffle. And that's why you have what we call a shadow flare in the Uni-Q, because the Uni-Q driver is much smaller than the bass driver. So if you look at an R series speaker, that shadow flare is actually an extension of the speaker. It's a waveguide that makes the sound think that it's coming out of a speaker that's basically the size of the baffle. So it doesn't travel along the outside of the speaker. I always like to, like a raindrop falling down, the outside of your car or a house. It's going to build and build and build. And then it's going to plop off. Well, that's what sound does on a speaker box. It'll build and build and build on the edge of the baffle. And then when it gets enough power, it'll come out. And a lot of that energy will reach your ear. And here we go, smudging the sound again, right? So you're going to get that. You're getting a lot of technology that came straight out of Blade. So when we build a Blade speaker or a Muon or these really high-level speakers, LS50 for an example, that's going to trickle down into all the product lines, all the way through reference and R and Q and into our LS series and so on and so forth. So, and you're getting, you're getting a beefier crossover. You're kind of jumping up in the power range and the SPL and all. But I think the coolest things about R to me are the way that we've handled diffraction and the way that, that box looks really tidy, and it's just a pretty little thing, but it's doing a job too. So there's nothing wasted. There's no effort that we're wasting here. Say, well, let's just make a speaker with a small box. Well, if that happened to make it sound worse, we're not going to do that. Because let's take the opposite. Let's make a speaker with a really wide box, because that's what people want in their houses right now, is wide boxes and little speakers. We're not going to do that, because that could be possibly the worst speaker design that we could come up with for our technology, right? So
there's a reason nobody's done it.
Say it again.
I said there's a reason nobody's done it.
Yeah, exactly, because it would be horrible, right? But that's just an extreme example of, when we're going to do something, we're going to do it because, obviously we want it to look great in your living room. That's you're not going to buy it if it looks horrible. But if it looks great and sounds bad, we haven't gotten anywhere. We need to have it do both of those things. And I think our series really captured that just magnificently, and those finishes are stunning.
Yep. We had a little thing from Chamara. Gosh, and I'm going to try this. Rick, I won't try it. She says that the new KEF app is much better, and I agree. Hopefully there is a way to bring the older speakers to that app, but I'm not sure. Hopefully Jack can shed some light.
So and I appreciate the question, and it's a great question, and I appreciate that very much. I think the thing that I need to let you know is it's a different platform, even though the names might be the same, LS50 Wireless versus LS50 Wireless 2. They're completely different products. They're a completely different product. What we as a manufacturer are going to do is we're not just going to leave the app to the wayside on the LS50 Wireless. We're going to continue to work on bugs, and we're going to continue to to improve the app and the performance as best we can. But I think it's really important that we differentiate them as two different products. It's literally, if we were in the business of kitchen appliances, one's a refrigerator and one's a dishwasher. They look like, our dishwasher products, but they're not going to be retrofitting to each other. And, I understand that we want our customers on the older products to know that we're going to be there in supporting that app as best we can to, always make sure that it's as stable and as robust as it can possibly be.
Well, the one thing we need to understand that as things move forward, that we need more bandwidth in these boxes to be able to actually go farther. And, certainly, and I'm going to name somebody out there, but Sonos is having people, move to the next generation because it doesn't have enough processing power to go to a place that they want to. So this is true with your phones. It's true with your computers. It's true with iPads, any of that kind of stuff that you use. As this speed of technology moves forward and forward, we're going to have a harder and harder time keeping what is new in the older units.
I just turned my iPhone in that was 6 years old, and the lady at the phone store, when I turned in, looked at me like I had three heads, that I had a 6-year-old phone. And the only reason I turned it in is because the screen was so cracked I couldn't see it anymore. Because whatever, right? But it is completely a different product. It still says iPhone, absolutely, but it's a completely different product. And I think it's important. And as a manufacturer, as a retailer, we owe it to our customers, but to know this, but the customers need to really move as exponentially as they're moving. I had a discussion with somebody earlier this morning about a streaming service that will, that we were talking about it in relation to 2014, that if we were to have this discussion about the streaming service in 2014, and then fast forward to today, that 6 years difference is light years different. And so we're aware of the fact that is the way it's going to be, but also I think all of us need to understand that technology today is going to be completely looking like a Model T Ford in like 3 years. That's just how things are going right now.
Yep. Yeah. So one of the things, I read a book probably, 2 years ago, and it was by Thomas Friedman, and it was called Thanks for Being Late. And it's actually about technology and our ability to adapt to it, and how now technology is moving faster than our ability to adapt. And it's part of what's making us uncomfortable in the world, because technology is moving really fast. And anyway, it's a very interesting book if anybody wants to kind of grab a hold of your world and technology and that kind of thing. Obviously, through all that we've seen over the last year, there's been a lot going on, and a lot of uncomfortableness, a lot of screaming and yelling and all that kind of thing. But I ask everybody, please, let's all just be kind to one another. We're actually a lot closer to each other than any of that stuff says.
I love that. So, yeah.
So, all right. We're going to now move into reference series. I had a pair of Ref 1s here that, as far as, it's a sizable bookshelf, but wow, what a performing speaker. Just blown away by it. How old is the reference series?
2014. To speak every, I think we're 5 or 6 years into it. I think it was the first time I saw him was Munich HiFi, and I believe that was in 2014. Yeah.
I was set to go to Munich this past spring. Time, and really was looking forward to it. And so now it's, I think, in the fall of 21. So I'm going to do my best to make that show. I've heard nothing but great things. Yep.
Wonderful show to go to. Yeah.
Yep. So tell us a little bit about the reference series.
Well, reference was a direct descendant in terms of DNA and in terms of technical expertise from Blade. It was the first time that we then saw the Blade driver and that technology in a product. As we mentioned way back, reference has a very specific meaning to KEF. It's not just a word to us. Reference to us means that the speakers are matched to each other, and that they're within a half a dB of performance from each other. So, and they referred back to the original reference. So you're getting, when you buy the product, what the engineer wanted us to hear, or what the design product was. The finishes are just beyond extraordinary, and it matches perfectly with the technology inside. So it's direct descendant from Blade. It's got the newer Uni-Q. It was the first time that we dropped that Uni-Q out onto the public, and all the crossover components are listened to. They're not run by a machine. So we'll pick the components out by machine, and then each one is listened to by an engineer. They'll change a cap out to hear how that changes the sound throughout. So voicing was a particular, is a particular point of pride where, we're going to voice it obviously by machines and by graphs, but we're going to voice it by musicians and engineers and people who are going to, continue to tweak and continue to tweak down. So you're at the creme de la creme at this point with reference. I do see the question, when will we see a reference refresh?
Knew that was coming.
I'm going to refer back to my Blade answer.
Yes.
Which I think is the proper answer that I'm going to be giving on that today. So, stay tuned, folks. But I've got nothing to share. I've got nothing to offer on that right now at this point.
I understand. I will tell you, as a speaker as it sits today, it's an extraordinary speaker. Great sound staging, and that's from the 1s, 3s, and 5s. All three of those speakers are just outstanding in each one of their places.
And if I could talk real quick about, I know we're running a little bit long, but I think when we're on the reference topic, I want to bring this up. There's always a big debate on the forums about speaker break-in, right? Is it a thing? Is it not a thing? Speaker break-in is a thing, right? You have to break in the speakers.
Yep.
And the technology in reference in particular seems to be a product that requires a little bit more break-in to really open up and kind of do what they do than other products, even in our own line or other manufacturers. And it's, the stiffness of the spider and the surround, because of the way they're made, it's stiff. So when you buy reference, if you listen to it, you go out to this, your store and you listen to it, they've got a bunch of hours on them. They sound just wonderfully warm and good. And you bring them home and you're maybe left a little flat with that initial experience with them. Do not fear. Do not worry. It's not a problem. You could be looking at upwards of 100 hours of break-in, particularly on the bookshelf models, because of the stiffness of the spider. So I wanted to kind of I know that's always a matter of discussion for everybody. Speaker break-in is a thing, and your references when you get them home, you definitely want to do it. You don't have to do white noise and pink noise and all this. Just play them.
Just play
as loudly. Just play the speakers, but they are going to open up after a while.
Yep, they are mechanical and they will move and basically reach their proper place in time. We find that the higher end the product is, the more break-in there is, even with electronics, because the circuit boards are so thick, all the dielectrics are forming and things along that lines. And there's a lot going on in this stuff. And it's, that's why I find it so hard to think of how someone manufactures a product and changes out caps and stuff along that lines. And then that cap needs time to actually be in there before you fully hear it. So it's kind of an
exactly. Even if it's a surface mount cap that's a little bit, that's tiny, it's still a physical body. It still has to have some level of break-in, and that's no more prevalent than speakers. I will say, electrons flow however they want to flow, and they're going to do whatever they want to do. But in terms of mechanical things, you need to break them in.
Awesome.
Or physical things, yeah.
So, without getting too far, the Blade and Blade 2, they have gone to a huge acclaim when they came out, and shall we say they've been out a few years now. Still, again, an amazing speaker. It's one thing, speakers that can stand the test of time are true speakers. Ones that don't aren't. And of course, we have our elf on the shelf up there with the Blades, but it really is just blows my mind funny. So tell us a little bit about the Blades.
So Blades are a real cool story, because it was basically an engineering effort to say, if we could do whatever we wanted to do to make the perfect acoustic speaker, regardless of shape or cost or size or any of that, what would we do? And that was Concept Blade back at the end of the 2000s. It was an exercise in engineering that we were blessed as a company to be able to do that, to be able to put those resources to it. So we put Concept Blade out, and it's obviously a unique looking speaker, but it looks like that for a very specific purpose. And that is, if you hear a blade and you hear that single apparent source for the first time ever that's mind boggling, because you can close your eyes and you can hear that orchestra or that string quartet or that band or jazz combo or whatever it is, literally right in front of your eyes in 3 dimensions all the way around. So when we did announce it, and basically people are like, you've got to make this a product. And we had no real intention of making it a product, which is also similar to LS50. LS50 was going to be a one-off anniversary thing that we're like, look, this is us being, really thrilled about our 50th birthday. Here's a speaker. And here we are 10 years later. Look what we're talking about with LS50. Kind of the same thing happened with Blade. So then within a couple of years, how to manufacture it. And I've been in speakers on many occasions, and it's that in and of itself, the electronics and all that's inside of a Blade speaker and the chambers and things that are in there, it's really a complex device, but it's all proof in the pudding and how it sounds. So then we rolled around with that for a couple of 3 years, I guess, and then we felt that there was room in the market for a slightly smaller version of it. I believe it's 2/3. It's 1/3 smaller than the original Blade. And we were right. It was a good hunch because there's been a great market for that too. Because Blade, in all honesty, it requires a room for it. It requires the right space for those things to really open up and sing. I've even heard them in recording studios where they were not a primary location in the studio, and they didn't as good as they could. You got to tweak them, you got to move them around a little bit. Now, obviously, with it's a little bit smaller, it gives you much more ability to go and place them in sort of a normal or a smaller room. In terms of Blade, it is what it is. It's cool looking. You can get it in any kind of paint you want. You can literally go to your auto body shop and give us the code for the paint and go ahead and order them up and have them exactly match whatever you want or whatever, which is kind of a fun thing that you can do with the materials. But that was our way of saying, look, there is such a thing as a single parent source. There is such a thing as what Uni-Q does in terms of building a 3-dimensional virtual reality. As I had one musician tell me when he listened to Blade, like, wow, this is virtual reality to him, because he was listening to his own music through it, and it was kind of blowing him away. It was really a fun experience to have. And that's the story of Blade. If you've not heard one, you got to hear one. Even if you're never going to buy a Blade, if you love audio and you love music, you've got to give yourself an opportunity to just go out and hear these things.
Yeah, we've got a pair on the floor, and shall we say we've had a lot of folks come in and have some really wonderful experiences with them, and shall we say we're excited to be able to show them. Hey, I wanted to ask you a question. There's a gentleman, Andrew Thomas, came out, and I'm just curious of your thoughts on this. Obviously, there's thoughts on both sides of it, but it says electronic break-in is a myth. It's your hearing and perception that changes, not the electronics. However, speakers, motors, things like that, yes, those break in.
I tend to agree with that. I think when you're dealing with electronics, when you're dealing with circuits and stuff, particularly as small as they are, they're really almost operating just above a molecular level at this point. There's not the physicality that's involved in it. So if it moves, it needs to be broken in. If it's physical, it needs to be broken in. So a diode doesn't necessarily need to be broken in because of the molecular structure. I don't want to get all into that. But a capacitor may, because a capacitor has to heat up and it has to shrink and it has to do those things, that'll actually happen within the electronics of it. So I am in the camp that if it moves, it's got to get broken in. If it's electronics, what we really care about is the fact that heat will kill electronics. Eventually, it's heat that does the damage. So that at that point here, it may change its characteristics during a performance and then settle back down. Now, on the other hand, transformers are more of a physical product, and there's going to be some changes at the molecular level with them. So, I'm here and there. I don't believe in, like cables don't need to be, broken in. And I always, you can hear me even hesitating to talk about it because it's such a minefield.
Yes.
It's like talking politics. It's like, it's just, I really about it, but personal, we'll hide the KEF thing. It's not me being KEF, it's me being.
You have to go up higher.
Yeah, I didn't, but electrons do what either they want to do or what they're told to do, and they don't flow, in any, they flow as they flow. They flow from the ground on up. That's the way that they go. And when there's nothing applied to them to make them flow, they just kind of, sit there, if you will. That's really a strange way to kind of put it. But yeah, I think I'm actually even going to pull out of this conversation at this point right now.
That's fair enough. Listen, my personal experiences have been that things that are not moving do change, especially if you get into, there are dielectrics, and we know that dielectrics form, and those have an effect on the sound. And, again, I'm not here to be an argument with anybody by any means. So, Andrew, I appreciate the comments and that kind of thing. It's why we're all out here is to learn. So I appreciate that very much.
If it's got a physical property, it is going to change inherently. That's the way it goes. Yep.
All right. So custom install products. We're going to have a very general conversation and then pretty much wrap this up for folks. But, y'all have anywhere from what I would call an entry-level speaker, around $300 for an in-ceiling or in-wall speaker, and all the way up to absolute reference level of speakers. Mm-hmm. And I know the reference level stuff is pretty new. What made y'all decide to go there?
Without sounding flippant, because there's a market for it, right? I mean, literally, I don't want to, but it's such a flippant answer to give. But the simple fact of the matter is they're for in-wall reference level product, and there's a market for a THX certified product. We have the ability to do that. It's kind of a no-brainer to say, hey, look, there's people that want this product. We've already got the technology together. It's just a matter of the machining has to be a little bit different, as opposed to making a reference in a box or a reference on a faceplate with an ability to install it. And, it was very funny because I wasn't personally of the size of the market, or that market even existed, because I don't live in that world. I don't the customer facing world. And it amazes me the fact that how good people's home theaters are, and how good they can be, and how easy we can put that together for people now at this point.
Yeah. I will tell you, the performance of products that we're getting out of, nearly invisible stuff these days is absolutely incredible, especially if you can put a good amp on it. My biggest thing that I've seen in our industry, unfortunately, is that we get into an awful lot of automation and don't pay as much attention to the quality of the products that we're automating. And it's certainly something that we look at in our industry. Is we're looking at performance first. It is what we're built about, is basically a high performance sound, and whether it be video or audio or anything along that lines, we very much believe in performance first. So yeah,
and it's the way it's got to be. Yeah.
Well, listen, I just want to thank you so much for your time today. I have learned a whole bunch and get to share that with others.
That's a blast. This has been fun for me. I super enjoyed the conversation. It's been great back and forth. I've learned. I'm taking a whole bunch of things away from it too. So that's a win-win for everybody. I hope that it was helpful. And if anybody has any further questions, Alan, I'm sure there's a mechanism. If they get to you about it, you have my contact information. I'll be more than happy. Your sales manager, anybody on our team is more than willing to help you out whenever you need it. So, we can keep the conversation going if that's the case.
Yep. Thank you so much to all of y'all out there as well. I love questions because it's how I learn. When somebody asks me a question and I don't know anything about it,
absolutely, yeah,
it allows me to work with that. And Andrew, love your comment out there. Andrew says, thanks for doing these. I really hope to very, very soon acquire my own set of KEF. So we'd like to help you with that, Andrew.
Yeah, that's great. I love to hear that. Yeah.
And I'll keep my capacitor comment to myself when we do it, all right?
And I won't even talk about cables or anything then. Yeah. So.
I will tell you, it is absolutely our thing to make sure that we have a fun time here at the store. We are professionals at what we do, but first and foremost, we're going to have fun at what we do. And this is music. It's meant to be fun. And listen, we have a joy at it. So listen, this has been HiFi Chats number 28 with the Senior Technical Engineer at KEF, Mr. Jack Sharkey. Thank you so much for your time today, and appreciate everybody's questions and those kinds of things. You know, this has again just been a joy. Merry Christmas to all, and don't forget to thank the little elf. You'll see him on our Facebook page and all over Instagram, and you might even see a surprise of him on the 20th making a live appearance. Anyway, we've got all kinds of special things in store. So again, everybody, this is Alan Jones with HiFi Buys and Jack Sharkey. Thank y'all.
Thanks so much. You guys are the best. Appreciate it. So long.